here we are for episode number 108 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Monday, April 22nd, 2024 at 3:38 p.m. I can already feel my throat getting dry, so I'm going to have a nice sip of this delicious coffee. And you might notice that I'm using a new microphone. I've been having some problems with my old one, so I apologize if the audio is a bit questionable on this. I'm still kind of getting used to where to position the microphone because the other one had so many issues before that this one is still a work in progress. So just bear with me on that. But hey, it's a beautiful, beautiful day out. It's been a little windy all day, and it's like kind of a little bit of a breeze in the air, but ultimately it's not like too gnarly, man. It's actually pretty nice out. You saw a lot of people kind of driving with the windows down. Not too many people, the windows weren't down all the way or anything like that because it was still a bit windy and it had a little bit of a chill, but overall it's a very, very cool atmosphere and just really, really cool stuff, man. And actually, I'm noticing I'm going to move the microphone a little bit away over here, so you're going to hear some movement on that. Maybe this will sound all right. I don't know. It's actually fairly a distance away, so that's cool. I got my water here, and my coffee here. Got a whole setup. There's no space over here, man. It's real gnarly. But anyways, yeah, it's it's been a real great time lately, man. I tell you, it's been really wonderful being alive. Just getting up every day, following our dreams, following our lifelong goals to the end. Because nothing is guaranteed. The only thing that we can guarantee is the amount of work that we put into it. So if you're like, oh, I'm working working all these hours at work and I don't have time to do X, Y, or Z, it's like, brother, you got 5 minutes, you can get on there. You can work on your novel or your film or your screenplay or your, whatever it is, man. It's completely your call. But it's all about just putting in the time and the effort. And we all have different lives and you have different, opportunities to do certain tasks. But overall, it's all about managing the time as best as we can to make our dreams come true so that we don't just talk about it. We're actually going out there and doing it. Man, my throat is dry as all hell. Can like feel like when your throat is dry, you just kind of feel it like the back, like you're like choking on spit, man. It's wild as hell. Got this can of bubbly here, cherry bubbly. That's very cool. Put that right over there. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this brand new 4K from Blue Underground from Gualtiero, Jacopetti, and Franco Prosperi. One of my favorite films from what year is this? 1971. Goodbye, Uncle Tom. What a great film, man! This is one that I've been a fan of this film for a long time, and now it's finally on 4K. That's wild. I have the previous Blue Underground DVD, um, and it makes me wonder. I think I may have talked about it before. I don't totally know, but it makes me wonder if they'll bring the other Jacopetti and Prosperi films to 4K. I mean, I know that. Whoops, bit of a technical hiccup there. I accidentally pressed end recording. But what I was saying before is that it makes me wonder if the other Jacopetti and Prosperi films will be coming to 4K at all. Because Severin has Wild Beasts, which I could see getting a 4K at some point. That's an earlier title from them. But as well, I'm curious what the if we could see Mondo Cane 1 and 2 and Africa Audio on 4K as well, because actually it's cool with this. I'm looking at the back of this here. So this does include what I thought it included, which was the Godfathers of Mondo documentary from, I think this was like 2006 or something like that, because it features interviews with both Jacopetti and Prosperi, and as well Riz Ortolani, who has since passed. I think it was from 2006. I don't remember when Ortolani passed. I think 2011. I might be wrong about that. But that was part of that Mondo Godfather's Mondo box set. I think that was documentary was made for that box set. But I'm looking here and it's great. We have both cuts of the film in 4K, which is really cool, man. Because a lot of times you only see one of them in 4K because it's just it costs more money to put them out that way. But you have the original English version, which is 2 hours and 3 minutes, and the Italian version, which is 2 hours and 16 minutes. And I don't know if I think I may have only seen the English version. I don't totally know. Because I know the endings are different on both of them. One is a far more extreme ending. It's wild, man. What they do at the end. The other one's a little bit more not quite as out there. But it's such an interesting film. It's such a cool film, a very controversial film too. I mean, I like how they actually included some of the choice quotes on here on the front from Shock Cinema. It's incredible. You'll not believe what you're watching. And then DVD Talk says shocking, banned in several countries for obvious reasons. And then on the back here, interestingly enough, from Roger Ebert, it says they have finally done it, made the most disgusting, contemptuous insult to decency ever to masquerade as a documentary. Very, very funny stuff. Yeah, so I'll read the back of it here. In case you're unfamiliar with this, I'll read the back for you. But the film, considered too shocking for the world, written, edited, produced, and directed by Gualtiero, Jacopetti, and Franco Prosperi of Mondo Cane fame, this epic recreation of the American slave trade atrocities was both condemned as depraved exploitation and acclaimed as an unprecedented cry of black anguish and rage. The Detroit Chronicle hailed it as a graphic, moving, nerve-paralyzing film. Legendary film critic Pauline Kael called it the most specific and rabid incitement of the race war. It became one of the most reviled and misunderstood films of all time. 5 decades cannot diminish Goodbye Uncle Tom's impact or quite its controversy, as it has become even more relevant today. In 1971, distributors forced the filmmakers to completely recut the film and radically rewrite its extreme narration, removing more than 13 minutes of race war politics and inserting alternate scenes, creating what would become an entirely different film before it could be released. Now, more than 50 years later, both versions of Goodbye Uncle Tom can finally be seen in brand new restorations, scanned in 4K 16-bit from their original negatives, with Dolby Vision HDR and newly restored DTS HD master audio, and packed with over 5 hours of extras. And wow, I think some of these had to have been ported over though, because let's see, yeah, interviews with Jacopetti and Prosperi and Ortolani, behind the scenes 8mm footage with audio commentary. This would be a great one. I'm curious. I'm looking here if there's like a making of. Here we go. The Importance of Shocking. Gualtiero Jacopetti, a feature-length documentary by director Andrea Bettinetti, which I think might just be about him, because the story behind the making of this film is just really wild. It was kind of the axis that they had. I forgot where they had filmed it, but I don't want to butcher the true story. But it was a situation. There was a dictator in power, and give him this like unprecedented access to just thousands of extras. And you see these helicopter shots, man, and it's wild as all hell. When I was into this, when I saw this film when I was younger, it was such a case where I couldn't believe this wasn't a huge film, huge in the way that it's like when I saw The Holy Mountain when I was younger, I was like, this is like a huge production. But then I learned, going on that Jodorowsky had, his own cult following, and his films were not necessarily obscure. I mean, El Topo and The Holy Mountain, they got El Topo got talk from the Beatles and all that, and The Holy Mountain got, and then and then even since then, this was before Jodorowsky came back to do like Endless Poetry and the other one I always forget the name of, Dance of Something. And this was before the Jodorowsky's Dune documentary. This was, I was think I first saw Holy Mountain in maybe like 2008, 2009, maybe. I don't know actually. Maybe later than that, I don't know. But it was before I was fully aware that he had a big cult following. But this was one that I was always so surprised that this was not more talked about, because even Mondo Cane, I think I knew had talk about it, mostly because of its connection to Kickstarter, the whole Mondo genre, and then the shockumentary stuff. Like I knew all that, but this was such a different breed of being put into that, where this is a feature narrative, theatrical film, but it's also playing itself like a Mondo film by playing it like a documentary up until a certain point when it does kind of break a little bit to do something else. Because the score as well for this film by Riz Ortolani is fantastic. It's a brilliant score for the film. Famously was reused. One piece of music was reused for the film Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn, who is just a huge fan of all these films. I mean, if you ever get an opportunity to listen to him talk, he's just such a smart, intelligent, just well thought out guy. I really just love hearing him talk. You can definitely just tell. And you go to his website and the films that he's. I don't know if he's restored or he's re-released, because that film Spring Night, Summer Night, that I have the Blu-ray of. That also has a Blu-ray overseas by Indicator. I I don't remember who put it out here, but I think he had something. He had an involvement with that release, and also, I mean, he's just a big fan of his cult film, so it's not surprising that he would use a song like that for a film. Like, I mean, it's the way that like for a big film like that, or this big like theatrical kind of American film, like the way that Tarantino will use like a David Hess song for Last House on the Left, or will use like just pieces of music. Even recently, actually, the film Immaculate. I was sitting in the theater and they use a piece of music. I'm like, gosh, I know what that is, but I could not put a name to a song. And then looking up after, it's from the Red Queen Kill Seven Times with Barbara Boucher, which is a good film too. But I wouldn't have made that connection. But I had only seen that film once, but I knew that piece of music well, but I just couldn't remember it. So yeah, it's cool, man. It's real cool. This will definitely both versions are going to be watched at some point. I'm really looking forward to getting into these special features. It's a nice 4 disc set, which also includes a soundtrack as well, which is great. I mean, I don't listen to CDs anymore. I only collect films. I don't collect like records or CDs or anything like that. So, but it's there if you're interested, as well as a collectible booklet with a new essay from Dan Madigan. So I'll definitely be looking into that. It's a nice thick release too. They kind of go off and on with their packaging. Some of their 4Ks will have the thinner, like standard kind of 4K cases, and others will have these fatter kind of cases because they have like when they re-released the Fulci stuff on Blu-ray, and they did like 3 disc sets. Those were the same kind of cases that were used here. Because then they did like Maniac as well, and I have that 4K of Daughters of Darkness. I think that's in a case like this. It's in the other room, so I don't know off the top of my head, but those are all great films in their own right, and they just do wonderful work. The restorations are, I think, might. It's hard to even compare who has the best restorations, who doesn't, because certain films are just going to have better elements than others. So it's sort of like with some of these films, you can't really be too harsh on them because given the elements and given what the film preservationists have to work with, it's sort of a miracle these films look as even as good as they do now. There's a documentary I wanted to watch on the that Vinegar Syndrome Lost Picture Show box set, which I have in the other room. It's like a feature length documentary about. It talks to it talks to like them and I think some of the guys from Severin as well, and just talks about restoring films and all that. And that's just so cool, man. That'd be such an interesting kind of field to get into, and just film preservation and film kind of restoration and the tricky kind of line between restoring a film and what you change. What you restore and what you leave, because if you guys remember when there's been a couple times where there's been some restoration issues that have caused some controversy. Where I'm thinking specifically of like the female prisoner scorpion box set that Arrow put out, where the color tinting was radically different than the previous releases. And I remember they said something along the lines of, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was something along the lines of the color. I don't even know how I want to phrase this. It's like the color gets like tinted when it gets restored or something like that. I don't remember. It was a big controversy though. There was a lot of people who weren't buying that box set for that reason specifically. That was probably the biggest reason as well. And you can look online. I mean, it's noticeable. They compared it from the DVDs to the Blu-rays. I have that box set because I had never seen those films previously, and it was just more cost efficient to buy that box set. Although I wouldn't rule out eventually getting those DVDs. At least the first three. The fourth one's the only one I don't like. And even then, I don't like it. I just feel like it's so far away from that. It doesn't even feel like the same character at that point. It feels like some of the same ideas, but then there's just like I remember there's one character that she kills, and I'm just like I don't see why she would have done this, man. It just doesn't feel like it's even written by the same person. But I have no idea. I've only seen those films once when that set probably came out. And the first one's great. First one's are one of the best. Well, I don't even want to call women in prison films because it kind of puts it in this category of being sleazer, and it's really not. It's more of a just a revenge film, but following this really great lead character who is very determined to get out of this prison and stay alive, even with everything going against her. Because I'm thinking like women in prison. I recently watched Bear Behind Bars, and it was just bizarre. It was you're watching it and normally, and then there's hardcore footage, hardcore sex footage, and you're like, all right, well, it's a lot of these films are probably, they're pushing the line of what you could show on screen and whatnot, and then, but you're like, all right, and then it gets. I mean, it's almost not even. It's really more of just like an adult film than anything else. There's so much sex in that film, but in a way where it still kind of plays out like a genre film. I can't even try to explain it. It's like if, say, if Joe D'Amato, not even that if he went sleazier, because it's not even that. It's more just kind of like if he was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if he was just making more of a straight adult film, because I mean, he has done adult. I mean, he's done tons of adult films as well. Also, I'm not even saying that, but I'm saying that it reminded me of a Joe D'Amato type film, especially when they have like Rats early on. I know Rats are more like a Bruno Mattei thing, but I'm thinking of like Violence in Women's Prison when the rats are like going after them, which is that's a gnarly film as well. Technically, I mean, I guess unofficially an Emmanuel film because it's Laura Gemser in that. I don't think they even call her Emmanuel at one point, but she's a journalist going undercover and gets stuck in this prison, which is, I mean, that's just a classic kind of Emmanuel plot right there. For her having to go undercover to investigate this, whatever it is. But I really like Violence in Women's Prison. I mean, speaking of titles I've actually picked up recently, I did recently grab a film I was so happy to get on Blu-ray, which was City of Hope, John Sayles. I think it was from 1991. I want to get that right, and I think I can confidently say that it's his most underappreciated film, for sure. I mean, in terms of how good it is to how often I hear it talked about, I don't really hear it talked about all that often unless people are specifically talking about some of John Sayles' films that aren't talked about. Ironically enough, when they're talking about the ones that aren't brought up, but he's such an interesting filmmaker. Because with John Sayles, I don't think he ever truly dipped in quality. I mean, I'm looking at like my least favorite of his works. My least favorite of his films is definitely Casa de los Babies from 2003, and it's not even a terrible film. It's just not great. But I think I like or love all of his other films. I mean, I'm looking at some of his one, and even like his newest stuff. I mean, like which no one talks about. I mean, like Amigo. I don't know anyone who's seen that film, and then Go for Sisters. It was great to hear Brian Sauer talk about it because I think that's a really solid character film. That reminded me of some of his other work of just these characters having to go. I think they're going into Mexico or somewhere, and to get this person back, which reminded me as well of Men with Guns, which is I think the three that are so underappreciated. I mean, City of Hope to me is the most underappreciated in terms of how good it is. But Men with Guns and Limbo are two that I never hear anyone talk about, and those are especially Men with Guns. I think I might love that film. Um, so hopefully that comes at some point. It may actually, I don't even know if those even have Blu-rays or releases, but it's great. I mean, it's great. We have City of Hope now. Lone Star just got a 4K. That's overdue for a rewatch. I love that film. I saw Eight Men Out got a burn on demand Blu-ray that was posted on Blu-ray site. I don't know what that's about. I got to look at it. Eight Men Out's a pretty good film. I don't think Baby Q or The Brother from Another Planet have very good releases. Baby Q might have a Blu-ray, but I think it might be out of print. I actually don't know. I could probably look it up instead of trying to guess out loud. But what's the fun in that? Because Baby Q probably is my favorite of his work. So Baby Q does have a Blu-ray with a terrible cover. I mean, what God's name? This is by Olive Films, so this is definitely a bare bones release. So it might not even be in print anymore since they're not doing titles anymore. Um, but as for The Brother from Another Planet, that doesn't even have a Blu-ray. That would be a great Criterion. Actually, I mean, hell, man, I think Brother from Another Planet and Baby Q would be great Criterions as well. Or put out a box set. I know they're probably owned by different people, but his recent stuff as well. I'm thinking like Go for Sisters, Amigo, and Honey Dripper. I don't think have very. I don't even think they have like very good releases. I mean, they might have. I mean, I assume they have DVDs. Um, but I think unless people are willing to search for them, it's sort of like they get kind of lost. And I think because especially Go for Sisters, I think is actually a pretty solid film in its own right. It is worth seeking out for sure. I don't remember even where I watched that, but it's solid stuff. But yeah, John. I mean, I went through his directed films. I didn't include in his written film because he's done stuff like Alligator, which is I think which is a great film in its own right. Probably one of the strongest Jaws ripoff film or aquatic kind of ripoff films. You have that. You have Orca, which is great. Like Piranha, which is fun. Piranha 2, which is ridiculous but fun. I haven't seen Piranha 2 in a little while, so it might not hold up as well. I just remember the flying piranhas in that film. It was pretty gnarly. Um, and there was that shark exploitation documentary that was just on Shudder from oh my gosh, how embarrassing! I'm blanking on his name right now. From the best movies never made, Steven Scarlatta. That's who it was. I'm pretty sure he directed that because he also directed Jodorowsky's Dune, and he's got that great. I recommend that podcast. The movies that made the best movies never made with him and Josh Olson, who he wrote like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, and he wrote Violent Night, and he wrote like some sex comedies too. And he did Hey Stop Stabbing Me, which uh, either Severin or Intervision put out, one of the two. But I mean, it's such a fun podcast to listen to. They just talk about films that are, I mean, from what the title was, they films that never got made. David Lynch's Johnny Rocket and some of the Halloween stuff that's getting made, and some of the James Bond stuff. It's all just, I mean, those two guys are just so knowledgeable and so much fun to listen to, and it's just great stuff. It's stuff that really kind of enriches your life and really kind of informs you. But for the majority of this episode, I've been kind of rambling, doing kind of a bunch of just myriad topics. But I do want to talk about, if you listen to the show long enough, you know how much I love recommending and getting recommended documentaries. I've talked about many, many, many great documentaries in the show, like Resurrect Dead and The Bridge and Hands on a Hard Body and The Devil at Your Feet, which still doesn't have a Blu-ray, even though they said it was going to come at some point, but it still doesn't come out. So hopefully that's still in the cards, which also got removed off YouTube, which is wild because I went to go recommend it to somebody and I was going to send them the YouTube link, and I went, damn, man, it's not on YouTube anymore. You got to go somewhere else to get it, and that's a real shame. And that film does not need to be lost. That film needs to be championed because, especially, with if I'm looking at like American Movie getting a Blu-ray, I mean, The Devil at Your Heels reminds me so much of that. Just this eccentric kind of personality who's very persistent in his vision. In American Movie's case, it's Mark Borchardt making his feature film, and then The Devil at Your Heels, it's I want to make sure I get his name. I do apologize. It's Ken Carter. Thank you. I don't know who I'm saying thank you to. Ken Carter wanted to do this ridiculous stunt that's in just insanity. Even Evil Knievel was saying, "Man, this is a bad idea," but it's just a great, great documentary that I cannot put enough emphasis on. If you, just to seek it out, add it to your list, add it to whatever, because the film like that should not be lost to. I mean, I think it has a VHS, and that's about it, and that's just insane to me. That should have a nice new boutique label. But here I am going off topic again. But in recommending the Life of Crime trilogy to an acquaintance of mine, he recommended me back. He said, "Hey, have you seen these documentaries?" And I say, "I can't believe I haven't." Now, I can believe it because I haven't, but they're so popular and they're about such a well-known case that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch these documentaries. I'm gonna watch all three of them, and that is the documentary trilogy from solid documentary filmmaker Joe Berlinger. Or Berlinger, is it Berlinger or Berlinger? Of course, it's the Paradise Lost trilogy, famous trilogy of documentaries about the West Memphis Three. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the case and the situation, I will not say anything because when people, when you hear about, oh, well, you should have known about this by now, this film's been up for a while, it's like, brother, we all discover our own things in different ways. So I'm not going to, if you don't know the case of the West Memphis Three, I won't give away what the end result is, but just know that there's this trilogy of documentaries from 1996 called Paradise Lost: The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills, and then the sequel in 2000, Paradise Lost 2 Revelations, and then jumping 12 years, well, it says 2011, but I think I could have sworn it came out 2012, whatever. Paradise Lost 3 Purgatory, about these child murders that happened in, gosh, how embarrassing, I already forgot where the hell it was. Good lord, brother. And, it's about Tennessee. I mean, it's the West Memphis Three. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing! I should just pause this and re-record this and not make a fool of myself. But misery loves company. Anyways, it's these three children who are found murdered, tortured, and they're like, all right, it's these three kids. Why is it these three kids? Well, because they listen to heavy metal music, they wear black shirts, they're into satanic kind of imagery, pentagrams and occult symbols and all that. So they say, by golly, it's got to be them. And documentary first documentary follows the case, and then the second documentary follows, interestingly enough, kind of the reaction to the first film. How the first film starts to have widespread sort of people talking about it, widespread acknowledgement, and focuses into the stepfather of one of the children murdered in some peculiar circumstances. Then the third film, Purgatory, is a bit of an amalgamation of the first two and then everything else that's happened from in between up to that point. And I think that you should, much what I was talking about with the Life of Crime trilogy, that I really don't recommend just watching the third, because especially with Life of Crime, 1984, I think it was, to 2020, there's a lot there that you need to see. Following those people through that journey. If you just jump into the third one, it's not going to be. I don't think it'd be nearly as impactful as when you get to ultimately where the film leads to. And this film as well, it feels the most like they're catching up the audience with the situation. They're letting them know about the child murders, the first two films, where the kids are. Because I mean, pretty early on, they're sentenced to death, and it's sort of just like the fallout of all this, and the outcome and the interference with the documentary and kind of the complications that come with it. But I mean, this is a famous case. I mean, it's gotten widespread attention. There was another documentary in 2012, actually, which one I'd be thinking of when I say 2011, 2012 for Paradise Lost 3, called West of Memphis, which is I think like 2.5 hours. Which and my acquaintance said it wasn't as good, which is understandable because you're comparing three films to one. But it would be interesting to watch that one, which I plan to do purely for purely for contextual sake, and just getting, because it's such a fascinating story about how many times you think that in a case like this there are so many complications. There's so many. It's not quite black and white, where there is enough ambiguity in some of these situations that you find yourself kind of in different positions of you have an idea about someone or something, and then as more information is revealed, it's sort of like, so it reminds me of that documentary Cropsy about the serial killer in New York, and the guy they had as a prime suspect. There were complications into him being a suspect that could easily go one way or another, and I think that because of that, it's a little tricky to even kind of ever get a conclusive answer. And this, I do kind of feel as well. Now, I've not followed this, any kind of updates on this, because there's still information there. But I would say that, strangely enough, these are famous documentaries, man, and they're HBO documentaries. And you guys know how much I love HBO documentaries. I think 9 out of 10 times they knock it out of the park, with only the occasional dud. And even that, I mean, there's only like maybe like one or two where I'm like, damn, man, that was not good. But for most of the time, they make great documentaries. And it's not even streaming on there, man. It's like, what the hell? Why are these documentaries being lost to time? Or that one I watched for 1993. No, oh my gosh, I want to get this name before the episode ends, because I want to leave you with this so you don't forget it. It is, gosh, I'm running out of time here. It is, here it is, I Am a Promise, The Children of Staten Elementary School. What a great documentary. That is, unless you can find a DVD of it, which I did at the library, it's pretty much not even available. And that's insanity, man. It's absolutely insanity. But what is insanity is following your hopes and dreams, not letting distractions of social nonsense, of outside nonsense, dictate your life. You are the one-man crew of your own life. It's time to make your dreams come true. So get out there, do it, Make sure to drink plenty of water, eat right, have fun. Life is so great, man. It's such a joy to be here. God bless. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.